Three sisters, Kristina, Angelina, and Maria, were arrested for the murder of their own father, Mikhail. The case began when Mikhail's dead body was discovered in an apartment in Moscow. The story quickly became one of the most trending topics across Russia. According to Russian law, the sisters were facing up to 20 years in prison for their crime. But what happened next shocked everyone. Over 300,000 people signed a petition demanding the immediate release of the sisters, claiming they were innocent, and victims themselves. What could have possibly happened that made these girls feel that their last option was to kill their own father? Let's dive into what happened in this family, and what Mikhail had done that led to this horrific act. The beginning. 25 years ago, it all started nearly 25 years ago when Mikhail saw a girl named Maria at a bus station in Moscow. They began talking and eventually fell deeply in love. A few months later, they decided to get married at a church in Moscow. However, Mikhail, being extremely cunning, never officially registered the marriage. He feared that one day Maria might file for divorce and claim his property and assets. So to protect himself, everything, the apartment they lived in, his bank accounts and finances, was under his mother and sister's names. Over time, Maria started suspecting that her husband might be involved in shady activities. Despite this, she still thought of Mikhail as a loving man, and their marriage initially went smoothly. But things took a turn when he physically assaulted her for the first time, while she was pregnant. She had simply asked to visit her mother for care, but Mikhail beat her brutally. Despite the abuse, she didn't immediately grasp how dangerous her husband was. She went to the police, but domestic violence wasn't taken seriously in Russia back then, and Mikhail had strong connections with law enforcement. Instead of punishing him, the police ignored the complaint. In fact, in front of police officers, at the station, Mikhail slapped his wife, and again no action was taken. Mikhail didn't want his wife to work or leave the house. He expected her to stay home, raise children, and give birth year after year. Eventually, they had multiple children, including a son named Sergei. Mikhail was extremely abusive towards Sergei, beating him, forcing him to work, and eventually kicking him out of the house. Sergei ended up living on the street. When his mother tried to bring him food, Mikhail would beat her savagely. Maria again approached the police, but they did nothing. When she returned home, Mikhail pointed a gun at her and threatened to kill her and the children if she ever went to the police again. The daughters' lives become a nightmare. Mikhail's behavior worsened. Although initially he only targeted his wife and son, his gaze eventually turned to his daughters. He installed a bell in his room that would ring in the girls' room. When it rang, they were to immediately report to him. He treated them like servants, making them do degrading chores and using harsh punishments, including slapping them and spraying things on their faces. As their responsibilities at home increased, their education suffered. Then things escalated even further. In 2014, Mikhail took Angelina to Israel for some work. They stayed in a hotel, and that night, Mikhail, heavily drunk, called her into the room, beat her, and tried to sleep with her. He forced himself on his own daughter, committing unspeakable acts throughout the night. When they returned home, the other two sisters noticed marks and bruises on Angelina's body, but she remained silent. Over time, Mikhail began doing the same with the other two sisters. He told them to sleep in his room, give him massages, and then sexually assaulted them. They had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. They were afraid, knowing what had happened when their mother tried to seek help. In 2016, on a family vacation, Mikhail tried to assault Kristina and even told her he planned to marry her when she turned 18. This shattered her mentally, and she attempted suicide. She was hospitalized but survived. When she woke up and saw her sisters, the three finally had a serious conversation and realized that no miracle or rescuer would save them. They would have to take matters into their own hands. The final day, July 27, 2018, the sisters contacted their cousins Sergei and Arsene and shared everything. On the night of July 27th, Mikhail once again called Kristina into his room. The other two sisters waiting outside called their cousin again for help. Mikhail, sensing something might be wrong, locked all the doors and windows of the apartment. Kristina texted her friend, explaining everything, which later served as key evidence. The other sisters recorded audio evidence as well. That night, when Mikhail tried to spray the girls' faces again, Kristina, who had asthma, collapsed onto the floor. He then began beating all three of them and eventually went to sleep. This was the moment the girls felt it was now or never. They opened the drawer, took out the same objects Mikhail had used to torture them, sprays, hammers, and more, and attacked him while he was sleeping. As Mikhail tried to escape the room, he collapsed on the stairs. Angelina grabbed a sharp object from him and stabbed him 36 times, ending his life. The neighbors heard noises but didn't interfere, assuming it was just another violent night in that house. The girls even injured themselves, thinking they could tell the police it was all in self-defense. But after being arrested, interrogations revealed inconsistencies in their story. The police eventually concluded that Mikhail had not attacked them that night and charged the sisters with premeditated murder. Public outcry and legal struggles. Despite their trauma, the girls were treated like criminals. In custody, they were terrified of the police, and Mikhail's relatives took his side. But as evidence surfaced, audio recordings, witness statements, the girls' messages, public opinion began to shift. More than 300,000 people signed a petition demanding their release, arguing that these girls had lived in a house of horrors and acted in desperation, not malice. Eventually, the sisters were released, but their lives were far from normal. They were expelled from their school, denied college admissions, and struggled to find jobs. People continued to judge them, not as survivors but as killers.